Hello, welcome back to Paris Air Forum. My name's Tim Heifer from Reuters, and I'm joined again this year by Ben Smith, CEO of Air France KLM. Ben, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
I think before we start, on everyone's minds today are the terrible events in India this week. I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there was an Air India accident yesterday in India with a 787. So our hearts go out to the families, to Air India, and to Campbell Wilson, who is the CEO. As of today, information is rather limited, but it is obviously a big tragedy. We still have full confidence in the airplane. We have 34 787s in the Air France KLM fleet, and the airplane's been performing for us for over a decade. It's a great airplane, but on the subject of Air India, our deepest condolences to the families.
Thank you, Ben. I'm sure everyone here shares your thoughts. We've been asked to talk today about sovereignty, big topic at the moment. The world is more and more perhaps arranged around national interests more than in recent years. Do you think there's room for concepts like sovereignty in the airline industry? Can you be both competitive and have to think about national interests?
I think for sure it already exists in many countries around the world where commercial aviation is part of a country's policy, external policy, economic development. You can see this in Dubai, in Singapore, two of the biggest air hubs, many other cities in the Middle East where this is extremely important. And in the Netherlands, KLM was one of the first countries or first airlines in a country that really wanted to develop a strong air service, strong air links to ensure that the country, the Netherlands, was extremely well connected, disproportionately to the size of the country. So yes, for sure.
I mean, you represent an airline that has two government shareholders. The second government shareholder bought their stake rather to the surprise of the first government shareholder, that was the Netherlands. I mean, is it difficult to run an airline when you've got governments breathing down your neck?
No, I would say when I accepted this position in 2018, I was a little concerned, or not concerned, but I was curious as to how the relationship was going to be between Air France KLM and the French state. And I must say, from the day I arrived up until now, it's been extremely positive. Now, of course, we've got not everybody in the French state or in France is a big fan of aviation, but overall, the importance of a strong airline in France that carries the French flag around the world is extremely important and is supported by many. In the Netherlands, Air France bought KLM in 2004 and created the group Air France KLM. And sometimes, I mean, an airline, a national airline, a flag carrier can be very emotional, can have a very special attachment to a population. And the Dutch state doesn't have a history of investing in companies like ours, but to ensure that the company or the group stayed aligned to the national interests of the Netherlands, the Dutch state thought it would be important to take a stake in Air France KLM. So to date, it's quite frustrating for us because we have a lot of challenges in the Netherlands when it comes to how the industry is treated. As you may know, there's a big pressure on us at Schiphol to reduce activities as a method to reduce noise, which obviously we are not in favor of. We believe many other ways to do that, new aircraft obviously being the biggest one. And then a lot of taxes that are being imposed in our industry that don't get reinvested into aviation. And of course, aviation, the fastest way for us to decarbonize is by new equipment. So the less money we earn, the harder it is, and the longer it takes to decarbonize.
We'll come back to decarbonization. What about the sort of level playing field? I mean, you've had a lot to say about the differences in regulation affecting European airlines such as yourselves and carriers from outside Europe, Turkish, the Gulf Airlines, and so forth. What discussions have you had with the European Commission about that? Are you making any headway on that?
It's extremely frustrating for us, and I think dangerous for European global carriers. There are, I think we can commend the European Union for pushing for a faster decarbonization, but obviously we are completely against this objective being done on the backs of European carriers and giving an advantage to global carriers. I don't think that's the objective, but by default, and not having, I said, the responsibility to ensure that European companies, European airlines, don't get impacted in a competitive way, so level playing field, because of some desire. So if there is, I'll give you an example. There's a ETS, charge that is put on all airlines for flights departing from Europe. So you'd say that is level playing field. However, 50% of our customers connect over Paris or Amsterdam. So we would have some people in Brussels that say, okay, it's the same for you and for Turkish Airlines, for Emirates, for Etihad, whomever. But because we have big hubs, which do depend a lot on connecting traffic. If you take the example of, let's say, Nice to Tokyo, where there isn't any nonstop service, if you choose to fly on Air France or on KLM, you would go Nice, Paris to Tokyo, and both flights would be subject to this charge. If you decide to go via, as an example, Istanbul, the tax is only impacts the first leg. So it's a big advantage to an airline like Turkish, because we have to absorb that charge if we want to maintain a competitive position, and there is no mechanism today that Europe or that Brussels have put in place to ensure that something like that does not impact us, and that is it's getting more and more difficult. That's just one example.
So, but when you talk about this to the Commission, do you get any sort of sense of positive feedback, or do their eyes just glaze over and say that's the airline industry lobbying again?
It's as I said, I think it's dangerous. It moves jobs. It moves out of Europe in terms of impact on the environment. It's just shifting the control of that elsewhere, but it does not change what happens in Europe. So as far as we're concerned, that it does nothing for Europe. It does nothing for the environment. Net. And the way some of these charges and taxes are imposed, are dangerous for European airlines, and I think it's really wrong, and we can't get decision makers in Brussels, at the European Union, the European Commission, to take this seriously or move to find some mechanisms to level the playing field. So someone has to take leadership and take responsibility. Otherwise, European companies will be significantly weakened because of policies like that.
And the growth of the Gulf carriers does predate this quite a lot. I mean, Emirates is going to be 40 years old this year. How do you keep European airlines relevant in the face of the growth of the Gulf carriers?
Well, if you look, I'll take our group. So, operating a company, we're here in Paris, in France, an airline in France, obviously it's a different environment, a lot of challenges. We've got different, there are different social charges, there are different laws around employment, the control and the relationship that we have with our main hub at CDG. It needs to be. We need to have partners and all of this to be on a competitive level playing field as Dubai in the UAE. In the UAE, you have the minister, the equivalent of the Ministry of Transport, and the airport owner and the airline. They're basically the same person, so they're 100% aligned, and also with a government policy to grow the airline and to ensure that the airline is aligned with building Dubai into a global city. And you can see it's been a huge success. Dubai, if you go over the last 40 years, has become, what Dubai has come into. Every time we go there, it's a big wow. And if you look at the airline is a big success. The airline is, it's a, Dubai Airport and Emirates, one of the largest airlines and one of the biggest airports and busiest airports now in the world. Now, we have huge advantages here. We have, in Paris, it's the largest inbound market. We don't have to create a market. It's already here. We have a fantastic brand. The Air France brand is almost 100 years old. We have a strong history with technology. So there are a lot of advantages that we have, which you can say give us tools to compete. But we need full alignment with all those that can help support airlines in France, in Europe, to if we want to have a global champion or global champions in Europe to combat airlines like Emirates or like Turkish, because they keep growing. We now have a new airline in Saudi Arabia that is going to start, Riyadh Air. We have Emirates, we have Etihad, we have Turkish Airlines, we have Qatar. These carriers, are extremely well run. They've got great advantages, but they are fully supported and aligned around the policies and objectives of each country. So that's tough for us. If you look at, I'll just keep going here on your question because it's so key. We in Europe and in particular at Air France, we've lost 2% of market share into France every year for the last 20 years. So we've grown slightly in 20 years, 10, 15%, our international ASKs, but we have not participated in the massive growth that has taken place in global aviation. So that's a big hit on us. So our ability to buy airplanes, we don't have the same scale as a European or as a Middle East carrier or some of the other carriers that are growing quickly. So it's a concern.
I want to come on to the small issue of tariffs. But before we go there, there's another issue to do with the level playing field as you see it, which I know is important to you, which is the overflights of Russia. Now, you can't use Russia to go to North Asia and other parts of Asia. You have complained quite loudly about the fact that Chinese carriers, for example, can, and you see that as unfair competition, I think. Why do you think that Chinese carriers should not be able to fly over Russia if you can't?
Issue with the speaker here. No, look, sorry,
we've turned into Darth Vader.
Is the speaker okay, or?
There have been one or two audio glitches. I suggest we power on. We might need to.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
Raise our voices
Maybe
a bit.
We'll hold it here. No, so when it comes to Russian overflight, so since the Russian-Ukraine war started, Europe, the European Union made a decision to ban Russian airlines flying into Europe, and by consequence, Russia banned European airlines flying over Russian airspace. So that has, and it's now been quite a bit of time, had a big impact on our flights to Northern Asia, in particular to Northern Asia, in particular Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and China itself. Whereas Chinese carriers and other carriers in different countries don't have that same restriction. And what Europe has not done, Europe has not put in some type of level playing field, let's call it, adjustment mechanism to ensure that that doesn't happen. We've said this in the past. One or two ideas could be: if you're overflying Russia, you can't land in Europe. If you're overflying Russia, there's a safety charge, whatever it might be, to help level the playing field. Because today, if we're going to Japan, as an example, or I'll even go, just if we say Beijing, if we're going Beijing to Paris and it's on Air France, or if you're going Beijing to Paris and it's on Air China, it takes us about 2 hours longer. So all the costs involved with that, and for us to stay competitive, it's very difficult for us to add or put rates or prices in the market that cover that type those type of charges. And you can see one of our competitors here in Europe has just outright stopped their service to Beijing from their main hub. So Lufthansa stopped their service from Frankfurt. The pressure on us for our flight from Paris to Beijing is extremely strong. So it's not good for any European carrier.
Have you talked to the European Commission about that issue? Are you going to get any help on this, or are you just on your own? I mean, this is a foreign policy issue. It's not a trade barrier, is it? Why should they help you out?
We make a lot of noise on this, but obviously with the foreign policy, trade policy, there are a lot of other issues that Europe is managing with Russia and with China, and this unfortunately doesn't take front and center stage.
Let's move on to tariffs, if we could. That's obviously a very important topic for the whole industry. First of all, are you paying tariffs on parts or engines or whatever it may be?
Today, indirectly, in particular on parts that are extremely important for us. A lot of our suppliers are paying, or tariffs have been imposed. So, in our engineering and maintenance divisions, this is starting to have an impact. But on air tickets, there are no tariffs that are in place as of today. And the rest of our order book, airplane order book, are all Airbus airplanes. So we don't have any tariffs per se today. We have 4 Boeing airplanes yet to be delivered that were ordered in the past. They are late, so it's unclear to me whether there'll be tariffs imposed on those airplanes. I think they're almost completely built, or they are built, and we're waiting for those to be delivered.
That's quite interesting. You think because Boeing is late on those planes, they should pick up the tariff?
Well, logically, I would hope so.
Do you think it's possible that the industry is just going to have to get used to these tariffs? It doesn't, the European Union is thinking of retaliating. Clearly, Boeing aircraft will be involved. It doesn't affect you primarily, as you've said. But although there has been some retreat from some of the very punitive tariffs, there's not a lot of signs of the 10% baseline tariffs disappearing anytime soon. Are you just going to adjust to that and pay it? And if so, how much can you pass on to your customers?
Well, tariffs existed before. I think the most important for us is to have visibility and to ensure it's any tariff or charge that impacts us does not give a competitive advantage to one of the airlines that flies into our markets. But look, we're still running a business. There are things that we need. If there are new costs and new charges that we didn't have in the past, if we want to maintain the business at the size and level that we were operating in the past and that we are operating today, we're not going to have any choice. And we have margins that have to be maintained or increased. So yes, customers will have to pay at the end of the day.
Speaking of the United States and the Atlantic, what is the situation on the Atlantic market? I'm sure you monitor that on a daily basis. So far, you've said it's okay, but how do you feel about that?
Well, it's obviously there is an impact. We're cautiously optimistic, at least for the next few months. What we see that the premium markets are holding, so business class, first class, premium economy, both leisure and people flying for business, both point of sale North America, USA, and point of sale Europe. So this is encouraging. Where we are seeing a difference and a reduction in demand is point of sale Europe to the United States, leisure and the economy cabins. So we are able to fill the airplanes with lower pricing in the market, but of course that will have an impact on our longer term capacity decisions if that trend doesn't change.
Recently you introduced the La Première product. How's that going?
Actually, it's going great. We're really happy. The reception has been way above our expectations. It's a challenge to put out a product like a first class La Première product that can sustain the prices that are necessary to run that service profitably. So it's the U.S. carriers, none of them offer a first-class product because it is extremely hard to meet the expectations of this segment in the market. Because most business classes now, all of our major competitors, ourselves, are better than what first class was 10 or 15 years ago. So to have a customer justify to pay even more, there has to be a significant step up in the offering. So we have designed this new product around as much of a private jet feel as possible or experience as possible, which starts at the moment you walk into the airport. Everything is fully privatized. It's like a luxurious FBO. You're driven to the airplane when you want, half an hour up to 10 minutes before the departure. We have one row, it's 4 seats. When you get on the airplane, customers are really impressed. The new seat is over 15% larger than what we had in the past, and the reports and the returns that we've had from customers to date have been amazing. So we are actually going to convert more airplanes with this product than we had in our old configuration, which will enable us to introduce La Première to more destinations. So the product, as of today, is more profitable than it was last year. It's still early. And the evolution of our profitability in La Première, when I arrived in 2018, we were double-digit negative on this product. So there were big questions around the viability of such a product because of the costs to run the ground service, to have a dedicated crew on the seats, to maintain the level of offering food, etc., alcohol, beverages, all that type of thing. But it's working out. I mean, we've raised the pricing incredibly, and the market keeps getting stronger. We've also just mentioned 1 or 2 more things with the environment pressure on some carriers. There are some people that would previously take a private jet and would have a lot of environmental pressure from either their shareholders or their employees, and it's now a new option for them. So it's a new segment of customers we didn't have in the past.
I mean, there is a sort of school of thought amongst especially people who who are concerned about the environmental impact of aviation, that flying is for the rich. It's a polluting activity carried out by the rich. I mean, having a very opulent, visible private jet type first class, is that really ideal for your image as an industry?
Well, if we look overall in the industry, if you're taking a private jet out of the market or you're reducing its activity, and that traveler is now flying on a commercial jet that is flying, in our case on our 777, over 300 customers, the environmental impact is much less if they're flying on our plane than it would be on a private jet, one person, going over the Atlantic. So perhaps if you look at it in isolation, the image may not be good, but if you look at it overall, it is a net positive in terms of impact on the environment.
On decarbonisation, where are we on SAF? There seems to be this stalemate. As an industry, the airlines, you're all saying there isn't any SAF. We've spoken to some of the producers who say, well, actually, there is quite a lot of SAF, depending on where and when you're talking about. And in fact, SAF prices have actually come down. How can anyone make any sense of this? How is this sort of complete stalemate going to be resolved? At some point, somebody's going to have to either produce SAF or buy it.
Well, I guess it forms part of our mandates and the efforts to decarbonize. The mandates for SAF usage, CO2 reduction. Europe is pretty much the only major region in the world that has such strong mandates or any mandates in place. So we have no choice but to comply. And that's a distortion in competition, and that is an issue around level playing field. Now, it is aligned with our strategy as a global airline, as a responsible airline, to move in that direction. However, we don't want to give an advantage to our competitors, which may actually make it, make our existence or make the size of our carrier less, and just transfer that activity to another carrier, and lessen the advantages that we bring to the economy in the Netherlands and in France, without any reduction in CO2, and perhaps less reduction. So number one, ahead of SAF, number one ability for us to reduce our CO2 emissions is with new equipment, with new airplanes, latest technology. We can reduce CO2 emissions with an A350, Airbus A350, or a Boeing 787, or the new 777X by 20 to 25%. We can reduce noise by 50%. That is the number one way for us to reduce CO2 emissions. Number two is SAF. And here in Europe, the incentives are not in place like they are in other jurisdictions in the world, like the United States, to encourage the producers of SAF to put production in the market, to put capacity into the market. Whereas here, it's not the case. So it's a bit of chicken and the egg. We're ready to buy it, but it has to be at a competitive price. It has to be available, and it has to be done in a way that here in Europe, that our competitors around the world, what they have at their disposal. So we think it will eventually balance out, but we need government support and government incentives to do it.
You have a 10% target by 2030, which is higher than most. You're sticking with that. You're confident you're going to reach that.
Well, we've been the number one purchaser in SAF for over 2 years, so we purchase already a big portion. So we have the capability to do it, but we also have to be able to afford to do it, and we like to exist. If these kind of mandates put us in such a difficult position, or the level playing field becomes so distorted, then of course we're going to have trouble meeting it. But our projections as of today, if such things as an ETS, mechanism to balance out competition, that's just one example of ensuring that we have a level playing field. We for sure should be able to meet those mandates, but it can't be done on the back of just European carriers.
We've run out of time, but I want to ask you very quickly about consolidation. Where do you stand in discussions with Air Europa? Are you just stuck on price or valuation, or what's happening there?
Well, Air Europa is the airline we've had a long relationship with. They are in SkyTeam, and the owners have been looking to sell for some time. Our competitor IAG did make a bid for them. They won the bid. However, the European Commission did block the purchase. So right now, IAG still owns 20% of the company. The family control the rest. So it's not a straightforward opportunity for us. So yes, we are still looking at it. Can we come to a conclusion that makes sense for Air France-KLM? Still a bit early. So we're still very interested in Air Europa. Which is more attractive to you from a network point of view, TAP or Air Europa? I think they both offer networks and potential synergies to us that are extremely interesting. So I think it'd be difficult to say which one is more interesting, but they're both very very attractive for us. We always end these conversations, which I have the pleasure of conducting every year with you here, with a question about aircraft. The first time we met, I asked you your favorite aircraft, and you had no hesitation in saying it was the 747-100. Remember. How much sleep do you lose at night worrying about the fact that you didn't bring back the A380, and you've got all this demand? You could fill these A380s. If only I'd brought them back into service. No, I don't have any regret. I think my colleagues don't have any regret. The airplane, from a customer perspective, is a great airplane. Pilots love the airplane. The airplane was optimized around a longer cabin, so the wing was quite big. The airplane was quite heavy. And when I arrived, the Air France A380s required a major investment in the cabins, because the products on board were not at were not at industry standards. We needed new business class seats, new premium economy, new first class seats. So major investment, and there were a lot of work that needed to be done on the engines. So about a 50 to 60 million euro investment on each one of these aircraft. And this is an aircraft that was not producing profits for Air France, with the exception of the peak summer, peak holiday period. So because CDG Airport is not slot constrained, the need for a big airplane like that, not as important as, let's say, our competitor British Airways in London. So we decided to go with an airplane like the A350, which is a fantastic airplane. It's proven extremely well for us. It allows us to offer more time channels to our business customers, to our customers that are looking for different departure times. And it's so far it's worked really well. So it's easier to manage. There's less risk, and it makes more money. The airplane is much more efficient, and the unit costs are actually quite competitive.
Well, that's very clear. No A380, but La Première is available on the 777-300ER.
Correct.
Will you please thank our guest, Ben Smith? Thank you for joining us again.